Welcome to the deep dive. You ready to go on a microscopic adventure with us today?
I'm ready.
Awesome. We're going to explore this incredible world of your immune system. So buckle up, everybody, because we're about to unpack, some really cool science from biology textbooks and study guides.
I think we're going to have some fun today.
I do too. All right, so what's our mission for today's deep dive?
Well, we really want to understand how our bodies fight off those infections,
Like those everyday sniffles?
Yeah, those. And even some of the more serious ones,
Okay, so first things first, we need to meet the enemy, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, our enemies are these microscopic invaders.
Yeah, we call them pathogens.
Pathogens.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are those exactly?
Well, we're talking about those viruses and the bacteria and even fungi and protists.
Like they're everywhere, right?
They are everywhere, and they're always looking for a way to make you their home.
It's kind of freaky when you think about it. Like right now, I bet you there are millions of bacteria just hanging out.
Oh, actually, way more than millions. I mean, bacteria actually outnumber your own cells, like 10 to 1.
No way.
No way indeed. This idea of the 10 to 1 ratio is quite old and outdated. We now think that microbes roughly equate the same number of cells as you have in your body.
Hey, really?
It's crazy. It's mind-boggling. But the good news is that, like, most of these bacteria are actually good. They're beneficial. They help with digestion. They crowd out the harmful bacteria. They even help train your immune system.
Oh, okay. So maybe not all bacteria are bad guys.
Not at all.
But what about the ones that are? How does our body actually keep them at bay?
Well, if you think about your body as like this huge fortress,
Okay.
it's got multiple layers of defense.
Mm-hmm.
And that first line, that's all about prevention, right?
And our skin is like that, it's that amazing barrier physically and chemically.
It really is. It's so tough. It's waterproof. It even secretes those oils and sweats that can actually kill some of those pathogens.
Right. And then there's our mucous membranes.
Oh, yes. Those mucous membranes.
It's like those sticky traps, like lining the fortress walls.
Exactly. And they're in your nose and your throat, even your digestive and reproductive tracts. It's amazing.
So they produce this mucus, which, what does it do?
It traps those pathogens before they can get in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and some of these membranes even have these tiny hair-like structures called cilia, and they actually sweep the mucus away.
So it's like a little microscopic conveyor belt.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. But what happens, when the fortress walls are breached? Like if you get a cut
Ooh, yeah.
or a scrape.
Then their rapid response team comes in.
Oh, tell me about it.
Blood clotting.
Blood clotting, all right?
It's so cool.
I'm ready?
Platelets, these little guys, they rush right to the injury site, and they form this clog, and it just stops the bleeding.
And then it's like this chain reaction starts.
Oh, yeah, the clotting cascade.
Right, the clotting cascade. So like damaged cells, they release these special clotting factors, right?
They do.
And it leads to this formation of fibrin.
And that fibrin, it's like this microscopic net.
A net.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It traps the blood cells and all the debris and everything. And it forms a clot that seals the wound and keeps those pathogens out.
It's incredible, like, how fast our body just, reacts to injury.
It's pretty amazing.
But even with the bleeding stopped, those invaders, they might still be hanging around.
Oh, they're sneaky.
So what do? We got to call in the big guns.
The immune system.
The immune system.
It's an incredible system.
Yeah.
And it's got 2 layers.
2 layers.
The innate and the adaptive.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about them.
So that innate immune system, that's like your first responders.
Yeah.
They're ready to tackle any general threat.
So they're not picky. They just, recognize that something doesn't belong and they attack.
Exactly. They are constantly on patrol, looking for anything suspicious.
I love it.
And one of their main weapons
With that.
are these things called phagocytes.
Phagocytes.
Yeah, these white blood cells that just gobble up the invaders.
Oh, okay. I'm picturing them like Pac-Man.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. They just engulf the invaders, through this process called endocytosis.
Wow.
And then they use end lungs from lysosomes to break them down. It's really an efficient cleanup crew.
So that's the innate system, but what about the adaptive system? What makes that one so special?
Well, the adaptive system, it's all about learning and remembering. It develops over time.
Yeah.
and it becomes more specialized as it encounters different pathogens.
Oh, so like the more you're exposed to, the stronger it gets.
You got it.
That's so cool.
And that's where these incredible cells, the B lymphocytes and the T lymphocytes, come in.
B and T cells. Okay.
Yes, they're both types of white blood cells,
Mm-hmm.
but they have very specific roles.
Okay, so I remember learning about those in biology class, but it was all pretty confusing.
Oh, yeah, it can be a bit complicated.
So can you break it down for us?
Sure. Think of B cells like little antibody factories. They produce these Y-shaped proteins called antibodies, and they can actually bind to those invaders and just mark them for destruction.
Oh, so cool. And the T cells, are they like the generals of the operation?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So they're different types of T cells, but the helper T cell, that one's super important.
Harper T cell, okay.
Yeah, they're like scouts. They identify those invaders, and then they activate the right B cells to make the specific antibodies that are needed to fight them off.
So it's like this tag team effort.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah.
They find the enemy, and then they create these weapons to take them down.
Exactly.
Okay, oh, I love it.
And the amazing part is this system has a memory. So after you fight off that infection, some of those B and T cells, they become memory cells.
Memory cells.
Yeah,
So they like remember the enemy for next time.
exactly. If that same pathogen tries to invade again, they're ready. And they launch this faster and stronger attack.
That's why, I mean, like, you don't usually get sick from the same cold virus twice, right?
Your body, it remembers it, and it knows how to fight it off.
Our bodies are so cool. But, okay, if our immune system's so good at remembering, why do we even need vaccines?
That is a great question. So vaccines, they're like this shortcut to building up that memory.
A shortcut.
Yeah, without actually getting
I
sick.
like shortcuts.
They basically introduce a harmless version of the pathogen, or its antigens, which are those identifying markers on the surface.
Oh, right, antigens, yeah.
So it's like a training exercise for your immune system.
Oh, so it triggers the immune response, but it doesn't cause any harm.
That's exactly it. And then as a result, your body develops those memory cells, and they're ready to fight off the real deal if you ever encounter it.
That's pretty genius.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
But wait, you mentioned antigens. Can you explain those a little bit more? I've definitely heard that word before, but I don't really know what they are.
Sure. Think of antigens like this name tag for a pathogen. They're usually proteins on the surface.
Mm.
And they act as these identifying markers for your immune system.
So each pathogen has its own unique antigen.
Exactly.
That's right.
And that's how your immune system knows which invader it's dealing with and which antibody to make.
So, okay, so the B cells produce antibodies that match the specific antigens on the pathogens.
Exactly.
It's like a lock and key.
It is. And that specificity is super important. It ensures that your immune system targets only the invader, so it minimizes the damage to your own cells.
So what happens when a B cell actually encounters its matching antigen?
Well, it doesn't act alone. Remember those helper T cells we talked about?
The helper T cell.
They play a really crucial role in activating the B cells.
So the B cell needs a signal from that T cell to start making the antibodies.
It does. It's like this double check system. The B cell has to encounter that antigen and receive the signal from a helper T cell before it becomes fully activated.
Oh, wow. So it's like a safety mechanism to prevent, like, any accidental attacks on your own cells?
Exactly. It's all about that precision and control.
Wow, this is incredible. So once the B cell is activated, then what happens?
Well, get ready for this because it's like a microscopic military mobilization.
Oh my gosh.
That activated B cell starts dividing rapidly and makes all these identical copies of itself, and they all make the same antibody.
So it's like one B cell turns into an army of these specialized fighters.
That's exactly what happens.
That's incredible.
It's pretty cool. And that army of antibody-producing cells, they can overwhelm that invader and clear up the infection.
It's like mind-blowing. Our bodies are fighting these epic battles every day, like at this microscopic level. We don't even realize it.
It's truly remarkable. It all comes down to this intricate dance between the pathogens and our immune system.
Wow. So we've got that first line of defense. We've got the innate system with those Pac-Man phagocytes.
Yeah.
And then we've got our adaptive system with the B and T cells working together.
It's amazing.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because that's what we're going to talk about next. Unfortunately, sometimes those defenses are compromised, and that's where we run into challenges like HIV and AIDS, antibiotic resistance, and zoonotic diseases. But we're going to save those stories for next time.
Oh, I cannot wait. This is so interesting. I can't believe there's even more to learn about this. So everyone, make sure you come back next time, because we are going to dive deeper into those challenges and explore how we can all help our immune systems stay strong.
Can't wait.
Okay, so we're back and ready to really tackle some of those bigger challenges that our immune systems face. We left off talking about how things can go wrong, and I think a good place to start might be with HIV and AIDS.
Yeah, HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, is a really, I guess, a stark example of how vulnerable we can be when our immune defenses are weakened.
Yeah, I remember learning about HIV back in school, but it always just seemed so scary
Oh, for sure.
and mysterious.
Yeah.
Can you explain like what makes it so dangerous?
Well, what's really unique about HIV is that it specifically targets those helper T cells.
Yeah.
The ones that we were talking about before.
Oh, right, right. The ones that kind of orchestrate that whole adaptive immune response.
Exactly. They're like the generals. They identify the invaders and then activate the B cells, which produce those antibodies.
So if HIV is like taking out those helper T cells, it's basically like crippling the whole immune army.
That's a great way to put it. That's exactly what happens. So as HIV replicates and destroys those helper T cells, the body, it becomes much more susceptible to infections that a healthy immune system would normally fight off. No problem.
So that's like the opportunistic infections that we always hear about with AIDS.
Exactly.
Okay.
These infections can be caused by, a whole range of things. Bacteria, viruses, fungi, even parasites that just would normally be a threat to someone with a healthy immune system.
It's kind of a good reminder, huh?
Yeah.
Of how much we depend on our immune system to protect us every day.
Absolutely. And, while there is no cure for HIV yet, thankfully there are treatments that can help people with HIV live long, healthy lives.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so antiretroviral therapy can suppress the virus, and that prevents it from destroying those helper T cells.
So encouraging, it sounds like. I mean, really understanding how the immune system works has been so important for developing these, life-saving treatments.
Oh, absolutely. And that same understanding is critical for tackling another big challenge, antibiotic resistance.
I've heard so much about antibiotic resistance, and it sounds pretty scary.
Yeah, it's definitely a growing concern. So antibiotics, they're one of the most important medical discoveries of like the 20th century,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They've saved countless lives.
Mm-hmm.
They effectively treat bacterial infections.
Mm-hmm.
But we've relied on them so heavily that bacteria have actually started to fight back.
It's like this microscopic arms race, isn't it?
That's a great way to think about it. Bacteria are incredibly adaptable, and they're always evolving. And sometimes, through random mutations, they can develop ways to resist those effects of antibiotics.
So those antibiotics that used to work so well, they're just becoming less effective.
Exactly. And that means we're facing this very real possibility of returning to a time when those common bacterial infections could once again become really deadly.
Yeah, I mean, I read about MRSA, and that sounds really scary.
Oh, yeah. MRSA is a perfect example.
Like those really bad skin infections and stuff.
Yeah, it can cause serious skin infections, pneumonia, even bloodstream infections.
So it's just one example.
It is. It's just one example. There are other resistant bacteria emerging all the time, and it's this race against time to develop new antibiotics that can keep up.
So what can we do? Like, how do we slow this spread of antibiotic resistance? It seems like a very complex problem.
It is complex, but there are things that we can do.
Yeah.
First and foremost, we have to use the antibiotics responsibly, only take them when you absolutely have to,
Right.
when they're truly necessary. And then you have to complete that full course of antibiotics as prescribed by the doctor.
Oh, yeah. I remember my doctor always emphasizing that, Even if you start feeling better, take the whole course.
Yeah. That's to prevent those resistant bacteria from surviving and spreading. And then, equally important is to avoid that unnecessary use in agriculture. So giving antibiotics to livestock to promote growth or prevent disease, that can actually contribute to this problem.
So it's this multi-pronged approach, like being responsible.
Yeah, it's a multi-pronged approach. Responsible use, better stewardship, and continuous research to try to develop new antibiotics. It's a huge challenge.
It is.
But it's critical for all of our health and well-being. Now, speaking of this interconnectedness, let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about another challenge, zoonotic diseases.
Zoonotic diseases. Okay, yeah, you mentioned those earlier. That's the diseases that can jump from animals to humans, right?
That's right. And they're becoming a much bigger concern as we, as human populations, expand and interact more closely with wildlife.
Yeah, I mean, I think the COVID-19 pandemic, that was a pretty harsh reminder
Absolutely.
of those risks, right?
It was.
And that was believed to have originated in bats, right?
It's the prevailing theory, yeah.
Yeah.
And COVID-19 is just one example. There are many other zoonotic diseases out there. Rabies, Lyme disease, West Nile virus. even Ebola.
It's like really unsettling to think that something as simple as a mosquito bite could transmit a deadly disease.
It really highlights that complex web of life that we're all a part of, the health of animals, the health of humans, the environment. We're all interconnected. And as we disrupt ecosystems and encroach on those wildlife habitats, we really increase the risk of these spillover events where pathogens jump from animals to humans.
So it's not just about protecting ourselves.
It's not.
It's about protecting the planet
It's about protecting everything.
and all the animals on it. What can we do to minimize those risks?
Well, I think one important step is just to strengthen those surveillance systems, to monitor those emerging diseases in both animal and human populations. I mean, early detection, that's key.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, to containing those outbreaks.
Yeah.
And preventing them from becoming those huge pandemics. And then, promoting that responsible wildlife management and reducing deforestation, that all plays a part.
Right, because we want to minimize those interactions, right?
Absolutely.
That would increase the risk of transmission.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got HIV targeting those crucial helper T cells. We've got antibiotic resistance that's making those bacterial infections harder to treat. And we've got those zoonotic diseases jumping from animals to humans. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But, we do have this incredible immune system that's working really hard to protect us every day.
It really is an amazing system, and there's a lot that we can do to support our immune systems and stay healthy. Things like eating a healthy diet, getting enough sleep, managing stress, all of those things can make a difference. And of course, staying up to date on your vaccinations is really important, as is practicing good hygiene. And we've already talked about using those antibiotics responsibly to combat that growing threat of antibiotic resistance. But you know what? There's even more to explore, like allergies and autoimmunity. We'll get into that after the break.
All right, so we're back, and I am still thinking about all this stuff.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It really is. We've covered so much, from that first line of defense to those B and T cells, even some of those serious challenges like antibiotic resistance and zoonotic diseases.
Yeah, and there's still more.
More.
Yeah, the immune system is so complex. Sometimes it can even turn against us.
Oh, right. That's what we were going to get into, right? Those allergies and autoimmune diseases.
Exactly.
It always seems so strange to me, like, why would our body attack itself?
It is a fascinating paradox.
It really is.
So let's start with allergies. Okay.
Yeah.
You can kind of think of them as this, overreaction of the immune system
Okay.
to something that's actually harmless.
Like pollen,
Yes.
dust mites,
Yeah.
certain foods. I know people who, they can barely even leave the house during allergy season.
Oh, yeah.
And then other people who have to avoid, certain foods altogether.
Absolutely. It all comes down to those antigens that we were talking about. So for some reason, people with allergies, their immune system mistakes those harmless substances, like pollen, for dangerous invaders.
Oh, so it's like a mistaken identity
Exactly.
at a microscopic level.
At a microscopic level. And once the immune system sort of identifies them as threats, it just launches a full-on attack, releases histamine and all these other chemicals that trigger inflammation.
So that explains the sneezing, the runny nose, the itchy eyes. It's basically your body waging war
It is.
on something that's totally harmless.
Absolutely.
Wow. And I know that in some cases, those allergic reactions can be, way more severe.
Oh, for sure. Like life-threatening.
Right, like anaphylaxis.
Exactly. And that's when the reaction becomes systemic, and it can cause your blood pressure to drop really suddenly, difficulty breathing, even organ failure.
So why do some people develop allergies and other people don't? Is it just bad luck?
Well, there's a genetic component to it.
Okay.
So you're more likely to develop allergies if you have a family history, but environmental factors also play a role.
I've heard about that hygiene hypothesis.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to that?
There's growing evidence that that it might actually have something to do with it.
Yeah.
So the idea is that our modern, super sanitized environments, they might be preventing our immune systems from actually developing properly.
So our immune systems are getting bored and then they're looking for something to fight?
Yeah, that's a really simplified way to think about it. So, exposure to certain microbes early in life, especially through dirt and play, it might actually help train that immune system to tell the difference
Wow.
between those real threats and those harmless substances.
So it's our immune systems need a good workout.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the rest of our bodies.
That's a good analogy.
And this actually brings us to another fascinating aspect of the immune system, autoimmunity.
Autoimmunity, right. That's when it attacks your own body's tissues, right?
Yeah, it literally turns against itself.
Which is just crazy.
It is.
So, I know some autoimmune diseases, like rheumatoid arthritis,
Yep.
lupus,
Uh-huh.
type 1 diabetes.
Exactly. Those are some of the most common ones. And they can be debilitating. I mean, they can cause chronic inflammation, pain, and tissue damage.
Do we know, like, what causes these autoimmune diseases?
Well, like allergies, there's this really complex interplay of genetic and environmental factors.
Mm-hmm.
We do know that certain genes can increase your risk.
Okay.
And then those environmental triggers, like infections or exposure to certain chemicals, can set off that process.
So it's a bit of a mystery still.
It is. But scientists are making progress.
That's good.
They're identifying those genes and studying the role of the microbiome, and they're developing new treatments that can modulate that immune system and prevent it from attacking itself.
So we've gone from those defenses to the B and T cells to allergies and autoimmunity. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
I love that analogy, each layer revealing more wonders and mysteries.
It's amazing. This whole deep dive has just been incredible. So what are some of those key takeaways that you hope our listeners will remember?
Well, I really hope that they've gained an appreciation for just how complex and how powerful their immune system is. It's truly remarkable, and it's constantly working to protect us,
I know I have.
and that we can do things to support it.
Right, like eating healthy and getting enough sleep.
Yes, those simple things can really make a difference.
And of course, staying up to date on those vaccinations is so important,
Absolutely.
and practicing good hygiene. And we talked about using antibiotics responsibly.
Those are all great points.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with this final thought. We focused on human immunity today, but every living organism has its own unique immune system.
That's such a good point.
It's a real testament to just how diverse life is on Earth.
I mean, imagine all the different strategies and adaptations. It's incredible.
It's a whole other world waiting to be discovered. So keep asking those questions, keep learning, and keep those defenses strong.
What a great way to end our deep dive today. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.